Hello, good evening. We will start our debate this evening. It's a pleasure for Panathlon Clube of Lisbon have these special guests, all these special guests with us. We are live on Facebook and we are here on Zoom with several colleagues. I ask you to keep your voice mute, and if you have any question or any remark or suggestion, you can use our chat here or on Facebook, whatever you want. We will try to keep the challenge to our guests through Fábio and through Pedro. So first of all, I want to say thank you for all of you that are here with us. And I will pass not the floor, but the camera to our president, Mário Almeida.
First of all, some words in Portuguese. Em nome do Panathlon Clube de Lisboa, sejam bem-vindos a esta sessão. Trata-se de uma questão da maior relevância no momento que atravessamos e o painel de convidados que temos presente irá com certeza enriquecer a reflexão que aqui propomos. On behalf of Lisbon Panathlon Club, welcome to this session. This is a question of the most relevance in the moment that we go through, and our guests will certainly enrich the brainstorming we propose here. Fábio Figueiras is a member of the board of Panathlon Club Lisboa. He is in charge of the session. The command of the session is yours, Fábio, if you please.
Thank you very much, Mário. Hello, everyone, on Zoom as well as on Facebook Live, and welcome to today's session. Today, we're going to debate the context, the strategies, and also the challenges to resume sports. The session is, as Mário already mentioned, organized by Panathlon Club of Lisbon, and our core mission is the affirmation of the sporting ideal, as well as, of course, moral and cultural values that should work as an instrument of training and education of the human person. So, as Mário already outlined as well, we have very good and let me say interesting also presenters, and I'm gonna share with you their profile now briefly, so that we can really go into the discussion, which is what we will do now. So we have with us Fernando Parente, who's the director of Healthy Campus and also of Universities Relations at FISU, International University Sports Federation. Thank you, Fernando. We also have Patrick van Campenhout, which is an executive director of the Belgium Olympic Committee and Conseiller International of Panathlon International. Thank you as well, Patrick, for joining. We have Flávio Martins, the Vice Chair of the Working Party on Sport of the Portuguese Presidency of the Council of European Union 2021. Also from us, thank you, Flávio, for being here with us today. And also Ana Carolina Côrte, which is a medical doctor of the Brazilian Olympic Committee and also medical doctor of the football club's sport club, Corinthians Paulista. So just a brief information as well, this session is being recorded, so it will be available later on our social media as well as on our YouTube. As also Duarte already outlined, we love to hear from you. So if you have any questions, please write in the chat box, and if possible, we will try to address these to our speakers. Meanwhile, and because I'm hearing, we have been also getting more and more people to the session. So welcome to you as well. And also to just give you a brief initiation, we are discussing, or today's session is about resume to sports, the challenges, the experiences, and also the strategies. So, as promised, without any further delays, I now pass the virtual floor. Duarte, there is a virtual floor to our first speaker, Fernando. Please, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Greetings to all the people who are with us. It's a pleasure to be here among distinguished friends. And I would like to thank Panathlon for this invitation to talk about challenges and strategies that sports currently face. The current situation caused by COVID-19 pandemic is dramatic for sport, affecting it in a way never seen globally in all countries and territories in the world. All national and international federations, clubs, public and private entities were affected. Coaches and athletes from all the sports were prevented from doing their sport activity, and in many cases, big problems in their profession. The financial impact on sport organizations and their professionals, it's being really devastating. With many events and competitions cancelled, as we know, or postponed, in a period that affects 2 sport seasons in many cases. So generations of athletes have compromised their sports development. But more complicated, in my opinion, is the fact that the restrictions directly affect the health of the world population, as we know. And as we know also before the pandemic, from the information that the World Health Organization provide to us, we know that globally, 1 in 4 adults do not meet the global recommended levels of physical activity. And more than 80% of the world's adolescent population don't make physical activity in a regular basis. We know that people who are insufficiently active have 20 to 30% increased risk of death compared to people who are sufficiently active. So this number, it's a reality now, and we know that up to 5 million deaths a year could be averted if the global population were more active. So 5 million deaths per year. Regarding this number, and just to make a comparison with COVID, we have the number from today, we know that more than 2.7 million of people already died so far. With the pandemic, the benefits of physical activity and sport have never been so promoted worldwide. However, governments have always adopted, in my opinion, a very restrictive policy in relation to sport, especially with amateur sport and for children and young people, always protecting a little bit the professional sport. At the very least, sport should accompany the dynamics of school activities, in my opinion, even more because we know that sport people know how to follow rules. But not everything was negative. The population tried to respond to this lack of supply with activities from home or outdoors when it was possible or it was provided. And sport organizations tried their best to take the advantage of opportunity to involve people using technology to communicate, as we know. Of course, the pandemic also created opportunities and accelerated some trends with the digital shift for engagement, for events, activities, meetings. Of course, as we know, and our desire is that it will be in a reasonable proportion. The emergency of virtual stadiums and sport venues and other spaces, accelerate growing in mobility gaming and e-sport. In my opinion, we must monitoring this issue to avoid some health programs that can come up. But another trend is the business model innovations and new programs and activities from the sport organizations, what could be and could accelerate the recovery in sport. In the case of the international sport federations, there was a concern to keep its population engaged, but also to activate the recreation athletes and develop activities to activate also new audiences. And in our federation, in the International University Sport Federation, in my particular activity and responsibilities, we launched a new program in an innovative concept. At least it's really unique for the campus communities. The name is FISU Healthy Campus Program, and it's also a response to the cancellation and postponed events and to keep our members and universities active, mainly planning and designing but also to develop some activities for their communities. It's a program not only about sport and physical activity, it's also more related to well-being, to health, and we had mental and social health activities, nutrition, disease prevention, risk behavior, sustainability, and social responsibility. With that new program, we can say that we have three main goals. Of course, improve the health and the well-being of the students, mainly focus on sport. We have 100 criteria, and most part of them are related to sport. It's dedicated to students, but also to the campus community. We designed a standard to certify the universities in the scope of this area of the well-being, with an international level that it will be endorsed by UNESCO, what is really good for us and for the university world. All the rectors in the world knows what is UNESCO, and sometimes, or in the most part of the cases, they don't know really what is FISU. And of course, share the best practices among all the universities in the world. As I said, we have 100 criteria, the project activities and events, we call criteria, that we ask to the universities to develop. And the program is aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 established by the United Nations. As well, we are aligned with also the guidelines from UNESCO and WHO. In less than 1 year, we have already 66 universities from 35 countries, and the experience, it's been great, and we are really glad because the universities are really motivated and are moving the universities. And we have here just to illustrate what I'm saying, one quote from the rector of University of Porto in the official speech of the 110th anniversary of the university this week, 3 days ago. And he said that we are effectively committed to improve the quality of life of our academic community. So it was very gratifying to receive distinction from the Healthy Campus program that University of Porto became one of the first institutions worldwide to obtain a maximum certification from the International University Sports Federation. So it's getting to be really important and to move some universities. What give us we are really pleased about with that. So I believe that from the lessons learned and with a good plan to mitigate what we lost, I think sport will come back stronger than ever. I'm a positive guy, so I believe on that. And maybe just like a final remark for this first intervention, we know that the governments are putting some money in the sport system to help clubs, federations, and other sport organizations in general. And in European countries, the government will use European specific funds to recover. So special plans to grow and to recover. We all know that the money is important to help, but for the future, it will be real helpful if we have national plans to increase sport participation with goals, general and specific goals, and also improve the quality of the programs and of course the sport organizations, because sometimes not all the times we are in the right side of the problem, and we must help our country, our club, all what we can do to help the organization where we are inside. We must do it. We must be in the right part of the problem to help. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for your first intervention. As Duarte already outlined as well in the beginning of the session, I'm joined with the co-moderator, which is Pedro Silva, that is the president of the Portuguese Federation of Amateur Wrestling and board member of the United World Wrestling Federation. And we are now at the stage in which we have at least one or two questions prepared for you, Fernando. And exactly when you were saying now at the very end that the federations were receiving money, and you were mentioning that part, it is actually really important to know, and you already, let's say, gave your opinion on this, but is this enough shouldn't there be also a marketing, let's say, intense campaign to illustrate how important sport tourism is, and of course the benefits connected with it? What is your opinion on this?
Of course, money can be important to solve some problems, some emergencies. But in any case, we are putting some water in small fires when sometimes we have the forest burning. The question here is that, in my opinion, the governments must fix some goals, tangible goals, and work with all the stakeholders, with all national federations, with all the sport organization clubs to reach those goals. If we don't do that, if we don't fix goals, well, we don't work for that. We must have a general plan and particular plans from the different stakeholders, and of course, federations here play an important role. Normally, I say that physical activity and recreation are the social responsibility of sport. Sport must be like the big marketing to move all the people. All we know when we have victories, when we have national victories, the self-esteem and the promotion is completely different. Not only personal self-esteem, but national self-esteem. The unique moments that we celebrate victories in each country is when we have sport victories normally. So it's really important to have a good brand, a good sport, to push all the people to move more, to make more sport and physical activity in a recreational level, to improve the physical condition, whatever. And as the World Health Organization say now, they say that every move counts towards better health. So in any case, we must improve the quality of our programs, of course, and try to have as minimum 30 minutes per day of physical activity to have a better health, of course.
Thank you, Fernando. I would like to put you a question that FISU being the world governing body of university sports, and assuming that we are getting closer by the day of getting over at least the biggest constraints that the pandemic has putting us up to, and assuming that by the next school year some activity can be restarted, is there a plan to re-attract and re-engage the students? And university sports has some peculiarities regarding sports overall. If what is the plan or the outline of a plan to re-attract and re-engage student athletes, not only from exercise or physical activity standpoint, but up to a world level competition?
Well, we can say that we don't have a global plan from our side. Well, we have our activities that are planned for the future, of course, but we design this Healthy Campus program in a way to work as a guideline to the universities to organize better. And there are general guidelines. We respect the autonomy and the creativity of the higher education institutions, of course. And we highlight the best practices that universities are doing at this moment, and we will share globally. And we know that we have fantastic programs now, even with the pandemic situation, online sessions, meetings, contests. There is a lot of things that are going on, and we are sharing that best practices. But fundamentally, what we have done is that we design a program to be prepared for the future, to recover better and faster, to respond to the future trends, to the future needs of the academic community, the campus community. Just let me just say that our standard, the name is Healthy Campus, is designed, of course, mainly for the campus, but we have some criteria to respond also and to cooperate with the local stakeholders, national stakeholders, with the future students, with the alumni, and also with the cities. Why? Because the notion is that the campus don't have walls when we are talking about sport. The idea is to use all the facilities intensively and with many people as possible. So there is not a global plan. There is a global program respecting the autonomy of each institution and a tool to prepare them for the future.
Thank you. I would just do a quick follow-up before giving the floor back to Fábio. Would you say that globally, from your knowledge, that the focus on the re-engagement now will be more needed at the grassroots level or at the more elite, if you want, level?
I think we must act in the two ways. When we talk, my definition for sports for all, it put at the same level the grassroots sports for everybody, especially for the ones that are doing nothing, because sometimes we focus to organize something to people that is already engaged in sport. So this group is really important, but also to maintain and to improve the best performers, the elite students or the elite student athletes or the elite sport in each country. Because I truly believe that elite sport is a fantastic brand, is the best marketing of sport to engage, to motivate people to do sport. People need those kind of values, not to be at that level, but to be more motivated, to have that collective and individual self-esteem.
Thank you, Fernando. I give the floor to Fábio.
Thank you both. Now, if possible, we'd like to hear from Patrick van Campenhout. Give you the floor.
Okay. So, thank you very much. Dear President Mario Almeida and dear Fábio, dear colleagues and dear audience, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate as a speaker in this important webinar. Please find here my thoughts and considerations. I remember 2 years ago telling a student that we have to cherish life and not always take it for granted that we live in this standard of living. My words were not yet figuratively called when we faced one of the biggest pandemics of our generation. It is now more than a year that we have been in a very peculiar state of life. All our daily activities just stopped for the most part. Besides economic and social life, the world of sports also went into lockdown, something never seen. Sport has become an activity that has become part of most of our daily lives. I have been involved in sport all my life, and I still do it today. Sport is a gigantic catalyst for society that incorporates all values of the society. Sport has a great influence on our health in the first place. Mens sana in corpore sano, a healthy mind in a healthy body. The educational character that sport offers is invaluable. Respect for others, self-discipline, fair play, fun and social contact. It's clear that sport has taken its place in our society that evolves with time. Our rat race rhythm of life needs much needed compensation, and that is offered by sport. My perspective is from Belgium, but the international sports landscape is no stranger to me. In this presentation, I would like to focus on the possible synergy between the national government, the European Union with the Erasmus Plus projects, the International and Europe Olympic Committees, the National Olympic Committee, and of course, Panathlon International and its partners. Also the media and all possible sports federations. It is of crucial importance that these partners join forces to counteract the negative consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic and ensure sustainable structured work plan for the future in short and long term. So in this webinar, I have 4 pillars to discuss. The first pillar, youth and amateur sport. In my country too, studies were made by the sub-governments, and we saw that the dropout of 30 to 40% of amateur athletes was noticed. If these trends continue, organized amateur sport will become problematic unless a pragmatic approach can be adopted to turn a negative impulse into an opportunity for a new positive evolution. In our clubs, like many others, we are bound to the measures imposed by the federal government, and even then the local authorities have the last word. Nevertheless, we must try to get the youth to practice as much as possible to guarantee their health, self-confidence, and social contact. Our colleague Fernando was talking about this too. We have special regulation for under -13 years that gives them the opportunity to practice their favorite hobby. This, of course, depends on the snapshot of infection that prevails in the country or in that local place. Besides the government, the media has a crucial role to play in providing correct information that to that particular target group. One could partly abandon the traditional program broadcasting and give time slots in these exceptional times for the relevant target groups, who then receive information, webinars, workshops, example, but from the national or regional broadcaster and in time slots relevant to the target groups. Our Olympic athletes who act as ambassadors for the sport can provide a mental boost and motivation to our youths and adults through a program that the media could make available. This could become a sustainable procedure for spreading sport as a positive element in society in the future. We only see our freedom is curtailed what importance the experience of sports bring. However, I also have to report that unfortunately clubs are also having to shut down because of the bankruptcy in football. 1 in the 10 amateur clubs, which is very worrying. We have a second pillar, that's the professional athletes. We heard already from our colleagues some very nice discussions in a certain angle. So in my capacity as director of the Belgium Olympic Committee, we are mainly dealing with the elite athletes and professional athletes. The time to the Olympic Games is short, but there is still a long way to go in relation to the exact measures that the IOC and the organizing committee will impose. We cannot yet assume that this will be the final protocol for the Olympic Games in Tokyo. Also, the consideration of the number of participating countries. I can imagine that one continent will be behind others in terms of vaccination. How will this translate into the preparation of these top athletes? Will they have the same conditions to deliver a top performance during the high mass of sport? We know that this pandemic has seriously affected top athletes, and their physical and mental balance is fragile. Several athletes have already stopped their top careers after the perceptions of hopelessness of the pandemic. Our government did listen to the Belgium Olympic Committee and made an exception for the top athletes who are eligible to participate in the Olympic Games in Tokyo by making the sports infrastructure available to them during the total period of the lockdown. And of course, this is strict protocol and COVID-proof. Our National Olympic Committee has already taken various actions to safeguard the physical and mental balance of the athletes, in cooperation with the medical staff, psychologists, and universities, who are working very hard to motivate the athletes to participate in the Olympic Games in Tokyo under the best possible conditions. All sports federations concerned were involved and informed. In connection with top-level competitions and Olympic Games, I will be interesting to consider perhaps working in a fragmented way. It's to say, the same competition could take place in each continent in the agreed regulatory framework, but at different times. And the digital technology will help us, of course, to match the final results. Maybe a crazy idea, but at least it will reduce travel between continents in difficult pandemic periods. Let's talk now about the fans. What a surrealistic image to see 22 players playing football without an audience, or a cycling championship with virtually no fans enthusiastically cheering. It makes us realize what fans means in the sport world. What an indispensable part of the experience they are. Not to mention the revenue that is lost. A ray of hope is the test that's now going on. They organize to get young people to have a big party in a scientific setting with strict role division and protocols to check how contagious it is. If these tests turn out to be very positive, and I mean in a positive way, of course, this will already give breathing space to all the clubs and organized competitions at regional, national and international level to implement the new protocols. The next pillar is the health. As far as I'm concerned, this is the most important pillar in a period of unprecedented pandemic in our generation. The highest good is our health, let alone that our athletes to maintain it at the highest possible level. And I mean all athletes. We can assume that a physical, cardiovascular training can be done in very disciplined way, and this during the entire period with COVID-19 background. On the mental level, it is different challenge with all the stimuli that the athletes had to process through family, friends, media, training schedules, and final goals for the competitions. Both the government and the National Olympic Committee can play an important role in creating an environment where the athletes can make their preparation in safety. The hot of the press news is the vaccination is being considered for the top athletes participating in the Tokyo Olympic after all. There are so many factors to consider, such as vaccine effects on performance, and this in the time frames leading up to Tokyo. The medical experts are pinpointing the time lapse that will be needed for an athlete to get used to the effects of the vaccine in relation to their performance prior to the Olympic Games. How sooner, the better. For the ordinary citizen, a period of inertia had begun. Scientists have recently proved that exercise and sports are the optimum means of increasing immunity. But sitting down and being inactive brings us into worse health. I submit. Scientific footage clearly show that when we are inert or active, the blood vessels dilate because more blood flows through them, resulting in what they call the shear stress. More blood circulated at the immune system improved because the antibodies are perfectly distributed to the body. Finally, there is a very peculiar phenomenon that occurs, and it's very little, but it's very important. The junction between the expanded tissue from the vessels is broken when we are inactive, and therefore a virus such as the COVID-19, for example, can pass through and infect us. If we remain active, the micro barrier continues to exist. I should certainly not forget to mention that the International Olympic Committee is doing everything in its power to ensure that the Tokyo Olympic Games take place. In addition, the IOC had held countless digital webinars in order to engage all the actors of the sport to get through this period of pandemic in the most positive way possible. And finally, I would also like to put the spotlights on our organization, Panathlon International, in connection with its activities, which are intended to give athletes, officials, volunteers, parents, youth and supporters a helping hand to get through this black period and to look forward to the next sport era with new insights. Where we can where we can all practice our beloved hobby and sport, again, under safety conditions for a healthy mind in a healthy body. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your remarks. And I'd ask you one question, and I please ask you to give us a brief answer as much as possible. Because you mentioned briefly that it may occur that not all athletes that will compete against each other have had the same time to prepare themselves. And this has a follow-up question that I'd like to do. So, considering this that you just mentioned, can we speak of a fair competition?
Well, that is the big question, of course. And when we heard, in fact, we all listen for everything to the virologists, to the medical staff, to the experts. I think in this time we have also to listen to the experts. If they do the tests, if people are vaccinated, whoever it is, it can be grassroots practitioners until the top athletes. If you can see what is the effect of this vaccination on their performance and on what time, because it's crucial. Imagine that we vaccinate today, that Fábio, that you are a top athlete, that we give you a vaccine, and then you have 3-4 months before you have the Olympic Games. But imagine that we only give the shot, if I can say it, for vaccine in June, and in July you have already, you know, the competition. So we can extrapolate all those things for all competitions that occur from regional, national to international level. So I think that, of course, for the professional athletes, you will have the National Olympic Committees that can work together. But then it comes the European Union and the members of the Union, the European Union, they can do a lot, because if they can make this inquiry about what happens with the vaccines on the time slots given, what I have said, then they can implement it in the other countries, like we should receive on the same time the same vaccine everywhere in the 27 countries. So I think this is a challenge, a big challenge. And since it's the first time we will have this kind of pandemic, then we will see it in Tokyo. Normally, I should be in Tokyo, but I'm not sure I will be in Tokyo. We hear now that there will be no spectators allowed. But do the officials go? We know that the athletes will go, but we don't know that any other people will go. So it's a big question for me too, honestly. But maybe later on, when the colleagues, you know, from the Olympic Committee, the medical staff can maybe answer this question more as experts. But this is my consideration about
it. Thank you. Before passing to the next guest, I would like just to put a question to Patrick. Thank you very much for your speech. You mentioned something that is a reality a little bit all over the world, but it's especially prevalent in Western Europe, which is the dropout of athletes, and now with the pandemic, the problem with dropping out of clubs, but also coaches, referees, and the fact that we have no fans for 2 seasons really will be the case at least. Most of these people are volunteers. Do you predict that when we reopen, will they be there? And if not, what the NOCs, the governments, and we all as sports lovers, what should be our role?
Exactly. Thank you for the question. I think it's a very, very good question, because why I'm saying that is because 2 days ago I was in the sports council of our country, and that was exactly what we have asked, that there was like an impact control and an impact project that we should see what will be the impact of COVID till now and then. So since I'm coming also from, let's say, a sport that is busy with a lot of volunteers, We know already that there was a reducement of the volunteers historically already, because yes, the younger generation got another point of view of it. But I think with the pandemic we are facing today, that we will facing also, I hope not, but I face that it will be very difficult after such a long period, even for a normal human being, that we have already, as I have mentioned, this imbalance from the physical and mental state. You can imagine for an athlete, and you can imagine for a volunteer who do it with all his heart, to try to do something, and seeing around him that people one by one are quitting, or, and I don't want to be what we call the devil, the advocate's devil, but I'm a very positive person and I have a lot of energy to do this all my life. And I think if we, of course, can include, and this is crucial, what I said too, is the media. If the media can switch their traditional programs, what I mean is, do we have, again, a message to see all the negative stuff we see on the news, whatever? Or can we, just for a change, go to positive impact? And this positive impact is that you provide time slots in the media in this particular time, that you give it to the target groups for youth. As I gave an example, it can be Olympic athletes, because as was mentioned by my colleague from FISU, they have like an example status. They can reach the youth, even the adults, but they can reach the youth. They can give them motivation. They can even give a workshop digitally if necessary, whatever. Also the information, class schools, little different than they were, that they normally see. I think the media can do a lot. I mean, that's my opinion, because I see that media is not renewing. It stays on the old-fashioned way to do it. And now, as we say, all negative things have also positive sides. As you have, the duality in life, and in the philosophy also, you have always a medal got two sides, and they are as big on the one side as on the other side. So I think we will learn something about this pandemic, I'm sure. And I think the target group we should really target it and pinpoint is the youth. The youth are of course, later adults, but the youth is very important, because I think they are suffering a lot. Since I give also lesson to little children and so on, and they always are very positive to come to train. But of course, unfortunately today, I just received the message before coming in here that we have to reduce again to 10 persons and this and that and that. But let's not be, like I say, we should stay positive. And I think let's start with the grassroots practitioners, but also the youth. This is for me the most important thing, and try to reinvent the way how to do training in our modern times and with our technology that we have. And just to say this, if you see how many digital meetings we have, if you see how many times the digital technology is used, now give it 1 or 2 months later, we will find it normal use. So things are changing very fast, sometimes too fast. I would say for your question too, that would be a very good thing, that we can change the things very fast and give the opportunity to the groups who have the most need to have some attention and to support and motivation. And that's what I think, that the media in first instance can do that. Of course, you have a lot of federations, and in the Olympic committees, I can tell you there's a lot that is going on, but I see one partner is not following us. That's my personal opinion, and that's the media.
Thank you very much for your question and your input.
Thank you.
Fábio, I give you the floor back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pedro. Thank you very much, Patrick. Yes, please, Flávio, you have the floor now as well.
Thank you, Fábio, for the floor. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Panathlon Clube Lisboa for the invitation. Congratulations on this initiative. and I promise I'll try my best to contribute to this fruitful discussion. I will try to be as straightforward as I can, and I will start by addressing this pandemic situation, kind of an overview, and then I will address more specific topics. So I guess the first step is to acknowledge the situation that we are living. For me, I must confess, I'm still trying to understand all that has happened for the past year. This pandemic situation just paralyzed the world. A lot was lost, and we are just trying to get back on our feet. When we talk about recovery, we can all agree that this is bigger than sport. We know it's not just about sport, but it should also be about sport. So sport brings amazing and well-known health, social, economic benefits because it brings people together. And now it's almost paralyzed because it brings people together. So what I mean is, first of all, this is a health issue that requires people to be apart. And we must bear that in mind when advocating for the resume of sports. The second thought I would like to share is, before COVID, sport, at least organized sport, was already facing quite a few challenges: sustainability of organizations, integrity, the proper social recognition, etc., etc. And then along came COVID, and with all the devastating consequences it has provoked, it also exposed and aggravated the existing ones. So I will move on, but I think we have to bear these first two points in mind. Regarding the reassumption of grassroots sports, especially for younger athletes, I agree that we are witnessing serious difficulties in the return of these athletes to sporting activities. At least here in Portugal, if you are only allowed to practice and competitions are not allowed, of course you will have a huge decrease of your motivation. Additionally, why are you going to renew your club membership or your inscription in your sport federation? So dropout is, of course, a major issue. At the same time, a lot of sport clubs have not resumed their activities, so you have a decrease in sport supply. This was aggravated by serious financial difficulties for clubs, and there's, I think this is one of the main issues, a lot of insecurity. People do not want to get infected. The lack of confidence is really not helping, because how are you going to convince a parent that it's safe for his kids to practice sport if at professional sport, with all the conditions and all the resources, athletes are getting infected? So in my opinion, the better way to resume sport at grassroots levels and for all ages is, first of all, we have to comply with all the recommendations and guidelines in force. I think it's the same for every country. I have to agree that we need to have a plan, and this plan must be disseminated to all stakeholders, because we all need to be on the same page. Another aspect, and sometimes this is often addressed, is we should not be rushing, sort of speaking, the resume of sporting activities. We all know this is going to be a gradual and phased process. So we have to ensure compliance, and I think supervision is the word. Regarding the confidence, I agree with Patrick. This is a key aspect. And we should be creating mass media and social media campaigns, just focusing on the safety of sporting activities. It's also my strong belief that sport will also benefit for the massive testing and from the ongoing vaccination campaign. So for this topic, I guess it's fingers crossed. Another issue often mentioned is the inequalities between athletes and teams from different countries because they are facing different kinds of restrictions. So leveling the playing field for international competitions, it's really up to international federations and events organizers. They should maintain close contacts with their national counterparts. They have to keep monitoring the different situations athletes and organizations are, stimulate the sharing of best practices and positive experiences. And at the end of the day, they must ensure that their competitions and events value is not compromised and that all teams and athletes have a fair chance to compete. On the other hand, you have, of course, these issues related to doping or sport integrity, such as match fixing, that are being enhanced by this pandemic situation. And we also must address these issues. So sport organizations and public authorities, law enforcement should keep their good work in order to avoid that these wrong environments are created and to jeopardize all that we have achieved in this field. Another issue, it's regarding the restrictions on sporting events attendance. I believe that show must go on. And I also believe that fans are one of the most important parts of sport. I really have mixed feelings about this, but in my opinion, for professional and elite sport, I think to stop sport competitions was not an option. Despite of the box office loss of revenues, keeping the competitions also allowed clubs and organizations to maintain other compromises, such as TV rights or sponsorships, contracts. This also allowed them to comply with their obligations, with their employees, with their athletes, with other suppliers. So once again, I believe that people will be allowed to attend sporting events in a very near future. And for this to happen, specific and clear rules have to be defined. Everyone has to be on the same page, both fans and organizers. And once again, supervision must be ensured. Just one quick remark. I think that different solutions must also be found for different activities and different backgrounds, because we all know that customized plans are more likely to work in different situations. And the fourth topic and my last one, it's about the effects of this pandemic on athletes. Recent studies have showed the major impact this is having on athletes' physical and mental health. Athletes are probably, I don't know, but they are probably the stakeholders most exposed to the risk of infection. In Portugal, their activity never stopped. They simply had to expose themselves and continue to strive for their goals. I feel a deep respect for them. I have to share this with all of you. So mental health, anxiety, demotivation, the loss of focus caused by the constant cancellation of competitions, it's really affecting athletes. And if you don't have competitions, they don't have participation fees, they don't have prize money, and that means they can have also a severe loss of their revenues. And athletes, like every one of us, they have to provide for themselves and for their families. So, of course, all of this issue must be addressed. I think the best way to do it is to ensure the proper follow-up to athletes. It's to keep monitoring these issues, to reinforce their sport teams, and to continue to raise awareness. Another aspect that I don't want to be disruptive, but we must bear in mind that we have to listen to athletes. we really have to listen to them. And where or when appropriate, we have to include the athletes in decision-making processes regarding competitions, calendars, and other support conditions. And to complete my intervention, I would like to stress that we must continue to collaborate and work together, and at the end of the day, everything will be okay. We can also find a bright side of COVID, if this is even possible. But we have witnessed that COVID accelerated the adoption of innovative practice in different contexts and at different levels. So I'm not saying this because innovation, it's one of the Portuguese presidency priorities, but I truly believe that innovation can be a key element to the recovery and to make the sports sector future-proof. So thank you all, thank you, Fábio, and the floor is yours again.
Thank you, Flávio, very much for your intervention. It's also time maybe to get one question from the attendants here, and because not everyone that is assisting to this, so mostly people from Facebook, they are not looking and seeing the questions that are here posed. So this question actually goes also into something that you mentioned briefly. So, and I'll read it loud for the people that do not have access to the question. So, Flávio, you brought a very interesting point. Sport was facing challenges before, and to resume has a bigger challenge because instead of returning to that previous level, it must surpass and take advantage to create a new sport that never lived before. Is there a view, and I would say ideology of sport institutions and governments in this direction? Do you have one?
Oh, I really don't know if I understood correctly your question. Maybe you can repeat it. You are asking me if there's some common ground between the private institutions like clubs and the governments. I really didn't understand your question. Can you repeat it, please?
Yes, maybe on the, you mentioned briefly the institutions as well, the work on institutions that is being done also on Europe level. Maybe if you could, that could be already be a pinpoint to, I think, this where this question was initially headed. So,
oh, okay. Maybe I can address what's being done at European level in this regard. You all know that sport is a subsidiary competence of the EU. So the EU just supports the member states, and it's up to them to move to action and to walk the talk. But a lot has been done since this pandemic situation has started, especially through the sharing of best practices and the exchange of positive experiences, not only among member states, but also among different European institutions like European Parliament or even the Commission. Just maybe to give you just a few details about what is happening since the beginning of the pandemic situation. When this all started, we were during the Croatian presidency, and member states rushed into sharing this best practice. At that moment, we all were trying to understand what was happening and what could be the way forward. And we had in 3 months, like 6 different surveys addressing all of this. By the end of the Croatian presidency, member states approved and the council approved, in this case, some council conclusions about the recovery, giving kind of a political background to the action to be carried out by member states. And ministers of sport have been talking about this. Recently, the Commission organized a high-level conference where the Portuguese Minister of Education participated, and the Commission has just launched a report on COVID, on the impact of COVID and the way forward. And I can tell you that member states are communicating in a weekly basis. almost, of course, sort of speaking, we are all cooperating. We know that the information that belongs to one, if it's shared, it will help anyone to get out of this. And to finish, the Portuguese presidency has also a platform with a survey on different areas in education and youth and sport. And I think this will help everyone to develop different strategies with, if possible, with evidence-based information. So thank you, Fábio. I don't know if my answer was the correct one, but nevertheless.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Flávio. I think it's we can already give the floor now to Dr. Ana.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, because for here in Brazil, it's still afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with people like you discussing an important theme about return to play after and during this pandemic too. And I would like to thank Panathlon for this invitation, and congratulations for this initiative. As you know, I am a doctor, and a doctor from the Brazilian Olympic Committee, and also I work with a soccer team here in Brazil. And so I have many opinions about exercise. I believe that exercise is medicine, and also that exercise it's important and fundamental to guarantee health promotion for any people, children, teenager, men, women, elderly people. And as a doctor, I stimulate everyone to practice a sport. However, today, I think it's better if I talk to you about professional sports, because it's what I do every day. In addition, what I prepared to talk here has a little medical point of view too. So let's talk about Olympic sport. There is just 120 days to Olympic Games. And my first question is, what did we have during the last year? What our athletes, what they did the last year? And here in Brazil and probably around the world, many athletes stayed around 4 months training at home, especially those who need special material and practice indoor sports. For example, artistic gymnastics, fencing, and especially combat sport. For these athletes, the preparation for Olympic Games was impaired, and their mental health too. I think it's an important point, the mental health. And what we did for example, as Brazilian Olympic Committee, we tried to give an opportunity to these athletes to train. And probably most of you know that we sent around 200 athletes to Portugal to train last year, just because they needed that time to train. Many people ask me about the records, what I think about the records in Olympic Games, if we will have records because this pandemic. And while we have this kind of sports, we also have a sport that the athlete didn't stop to any time to train. And the question is also because many athletes were qualifying, and another point is many athletes were qualifying in 2019, and the Olympic Games will happen just in 2021. And maybe these athletes that were qualified will be not in the best performance. But as I said, many sports, they kept training during this whole time. For example, in Brazil, our canoe team, and maybe they improved their performance, getting 1 year more to train. And some athletes from track and field too, they didn't stop to train, and some swimmers. And what we will have in Tokyo, we don't know. The medical team doesn't know yet, but I'm sure that will be a different, a difficult, and a special Olympic Games. And we will have record, but we'll have bad performance too. One thing I believe that it's important, really important to discuss, it's, as I said, the point of view of a doctor is the exams before return to play. American College of Sports Medicine, American Heart Association, for example, they wrote a protocol, a guidelines to return to play. And we know that there are some side effects of COVID-19 that could disqualify temporarily an athlete or decrease their performance. For example, we have the most important thing that we worry about is the myocarditis that could have a sudden death too. And so if the athlete had COVID and preparing to return to play, these athletes must have at least a simple exam, that is the ECG, electrocardiogram, normal or the same as before the COVID. And about health, a large number of our athletes got COVID since the beginning of the pandemic, and main effects we could observe after return of sports. For example, as I said, the mental health was impaired. A chronic fatigue, it's really important. Heart rate is higher than normal. There is some symptoms as an exercise-induced bronchospasm too, that decrease their performance. And that this point is a medical point that we have to take care when we talk about return to play. Especially in soccer, we know that soccer was the first sport that returned during pandemic. Since the beginning until today in Brazil and in most parts of the countries, doesn't have fans yet. And as Flávio said, fans is really important to sports. And I have worked in many games, in Corinthians games, and it's so strange, it's so bad, it's so sad, the game without fans. Soccer is not the same, sports is not the same without fans. And it's like a training session, the event is sad. But I can understand that the moments should avoid fans in stadiums. We need this. And I think everybody knows that this week Japan said that only Japanese fans will participate of Olympic Games. If it is good, maybe it's the best way to have some fans there. Olympic Games without fans are not the same. About vaccines, it's an important point to discuss. Nowadays, we have an important discussion about when is the time, the right moment to vaccine our athletes. The answer is as soon as possible, because there are main side effects that can take athletes out of train: fever, local pain, fatigue, and it couldn't happen a few days before competition. Remember that some vaccine needs 2 doses, and it could be 21 days, or it could be the first 20 days after first doses, or 3 months. And we had a few days ago, we had a meeting with a doctor team from many countries. And for example, the doctor from England said that in England they are vaccinated with the Oxford vaccine. In Oxford, they need the second dose is 3 months after the first dose. So it's not time anymore to give to their athletes, because we have less than 4 months to Olympic Games. So it's an important thing. we need to discuss. It will not be a easy Olympic Games. There are a lot of protocols. Japan is not a country easy to change the things or protocols, and we will have, I think it will be a challenge for us as a doctor. Fábio, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ana Côrte. Yes, Pedro, I see you have unmuted your microphone.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your speech. As a medical doctor from a National Olympic Committee, I would like to ask what kind of plans are in the oven to make sure that we don't get an athlete in Tokyo risking to test positive at the last minute and getting pulled out of the competition or getting pulled out of training for 14 days, for 10 days, whatever, or having the risk of those quarantine days falling into the competition schedule. What kind of a backup plan do the Olympic Committee of Brazil has in place, dislocating everybody to Tokyo way before, having some kind of a Brazilian bubble, how to adapt to the restrictions of the Olympic Village that apparently will only allow the athletes to arrive 4 days before their event and to depart immediately after their event. I would like, if you could, to share some of that planning with us.
I would like to guarantee that our athletes will not get COVID 2 days before the Olympic Games. But what we're trying to do, it's a huge protocol. Most part of athletes will be in Europe before Tokyo, and the second part of our athletes will be in Brazil, but we will arrive around 14 days before the beginning of the Olympic Games. But we will test a lot our athletes, not just 72 hours before the flight, because that what the Japanese government asked us to give a test 22 hours before the flight, but we will start to test like 14 days before and 10 days. Every 3 days we will test before, just because a lot of athletes get COVID and they don't have any symptoms. So if I didn't test, if I don't test, we don't know when the COVID started and when the illness started. So we will start before, and then to explain them. I think the most important thing is to educate our athletes that they should use the mask and to be as far from the other people. And that's during our meeting with the organized committee is the point of they ask a lot. Please tell the athletes that they should respect the protocol, they should use masks, they should be far from the people. And the guarantee we don't have. And the protocol is very hard because, for example, the close contact of someone, if I get a positive test, my close contact will be isolated too. And for example, if I have 2 athletes in the same room, if one athlete tests positive, the second one will be isolated and cannot compete anymore. And it will be very hard. And we have a lot of plan for this. For example, we don't put 2 main players, for example, from Brazilian team. We will not put Neymar and, for example, our goalkeeper in the same room, because if one positive, we'll lose the second one too. And it's, I think it's we have as a medical team, we have a lot of important decision to what about the group of risk. We will permit them to travel or not. And maybe this guy is an important coach for an athlete. It's hard, it's not easy.
Thank you very much for your answer. I would like now to open the debate to all the participants if any questions arrive. I see a lot of questions in the chat.
Yes, there was. Sorry, Pedro. There was one that was posted here quite some time ago, more generic one. So whoever wants to answer to this one is more than welcome. From Philippe Rousseau, and I will read the question for the ones that are not seeing the question. I would like to know in which country sports people are involved in finding the best solutions to keep sport working in their country.
Since no one is taking the floor, Fábio, I can take a shot at this one.
Okay, Flávio.
I think in Portugal people were involved because organizations, they are people, and organizations they were heard through the processes. I think the task group has different representatives from different groups of people with different skills, and our main organizations they have indeed joined to and making themselves heard, and I think all that they have asked, I guess the government has listened to them. At least it has tried to accommodate what they are requiring, if it's possible, of course. But it's just a small remark. Okay.
If you allowed me, Fabio, I completely agree with with Flavio. I think there are people, but let's say even in our country, there is another aspect. A lot of entities, local, regional, national entities, did also some surveys to the clubs and federations. Of course, and you can say, okay, it's a survey, yes. But the outcome of the survey is interesting for the one who has to do the decision makers. And I think that it's a synergy between knowing what's going on, as Mr. Ozio has well asked, and I think it's a very good question. And the second thing is, of course, the people who has to decide juridically on the law, on the sports ethics and whatever that you can follow and adopt. You have to know what's going on. It's like a detection for the survey. The second one is see how can we do that, and then of course is try to get a solution in it. But I think in our country I saw in any way some the surveys, and not only to top athletes, also in clubs from volunteers and grassroots practitioners. And I remember good that also the European Union, I think Flavio is very active on this matter to know where we are. And what is most important is to have a guideline for all the European Union, I would say the 27 countries. And of course, it's something new. We don't know. It's the first time we have it. And let's say that first, everywhere there was panic in the house, if I can say, for everyone, for us, for myself, everyone. And after now, we get more calm, and we will see the problem more from above, you know, that we have what we call an helicopter view on it, with the numbers that's going up and down. And I'm sure what I heard also from the doctor, from the Olympic Committee of Brazil, from Ana, I think it's very clear. we will try to do the most possible thing to have Olympic Games. And I'm sure it would not be easy. If I hear on the medical experts from the Belgium Olympic Committee too, they are also asking, please vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. They want to ask 500 vaccines to have the complete group of the Olympic national, the Belgium Olympic team with the officials and coaches, because they didn't know, maybe they go, they don't go. And we're waiting for that. But now it's time. I think Dr. Anna has mentioned that we have 120 days to go. And that's it. That's like tomorrow, if I can say so. That I think the involvement was there. I know it. The involvement by a survey, and after it was, let's say, the people who are the politicians and the law decision people are getting after to this.
Thank you very much for your speeches and answers and contributions. We have some more questions here, but the timetable we have is somewhat past. So I would like to wrap up some of the things that were said here. Basically, we have we were fortunate enough to have inputs from highly qualified people in a wide range of positions that have a lot of say, not only during this pandemic, as they have before, and for sure they will have after. All of us that were here and were able to listen, we were fortunate to listen to such important considerations, and that for sure will help us all in our daily interventions in our daily work. I would like to thank you all for attending and for your contribution, and I would give the floor to Fábio. Thank you very much all.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, everyone. Again, I'm also just making Pedro's words my own as well. Thanking everyone, not only present in Zoom, but also on Facebook. Thank you also very much for the questions that we have received. We received quite a lot of them, unfortunately. And as Pedro was saying, we're running out of time. And in order to, well, respect the schedule, we think that we tried to put all the questions that were somehow disruptive, let's say, and interesting to also have a discussion, a more general and brief discussion amongst the guest speakers that are present here today. As also mentioned in the beginning, we will have this session available on our YouTube channel. And thank you very much again for attending. I wish you a pleasant night, and also, of course, for our participants that are not in Europe, that are, for example, in Kenya. I know that we have people from Kenya attending. We have people from, of course, Brazil attending, and other parts of the world. I wish you a nice evening as well, and thank you very much again.